page layout, when I have this page layout, that underneath circle, nobody sees that that's not there. They have no idea that I've cut that out underneath. And the reason I do that is it just saves paper. Now I don't have to cut into another piece of paper to get that inside circle. So what I did was just put my red blade on the inside of my circle and cut around. And these new blades do swivel. If you have the old blades, they don't swivel and you have to move your hands. The blades actually now swivel as it's going around, which is really cool. So when I pull this off, I actually have the two circles. Put this smaller one aside because we'll use it in another page, or we can certainly cut another one if you aren't comfortable doing that. And then it's just a matter of taping your circle down on top of the circle of the trees is going to go down on top of the dark blue circle, the navy blue circle. So just leaving a matte edge for it. So that looks so pretty in itself and would be great on a page. So if you took your light blue paper, put that down and put that down, it makes a great page. But again, if you put pictures on this everywhere, it is going to cover up that scene. And that scene I just thought was so pretty and I didn't want to lose the scene. You are welcome to put pictures on it. But for me, I wanted to make that scene part of the embellishment of the page. So going back to the page we're creating, what I did was I cut that circle in half to make it more of the embellishment on the page. So quick tip or trick is if you take your 12-inch trimmer, open it up, and you see in between this plastic guide for where a straight piece of paper is going to rest against this plastic guide. It's almost like a raised bed here. It's a straight line. So if you were to put a piece of paper in up against that plastic guide here, it keeps your paper perfectly straight to get a 90-degree cut. But what we're going to do is we're cutting this circle, and I want to make sure I'm cutting it right in the center. Right in the center, remember my owl is off a little bit in the center. So what I want to do is make sure my trees are going up and down, and I'm going to put that circle right in between. There's almost like a well here where that straight line strip is not. And it's for our arm of the blade to fall into. What you're going to do is put the circle right into that well. And that's going to be the perfect spot. It's going to line up your circle perfectly. And you just want to make sure when it's in that well that your trees are going straight up and down. So when you put this down, you want to make sure you see your trees are straight up and down next to the arm. But by having it in that well, perfectly in that well, you are telling the circle, you are cutting the circle in exactly the center. So I put it in there. My trees are all parallel to the cutting bar. And then I'm just going to cut down my circle in the center. And I have the two halves of my page. So perfectly, yes?
Can you just explain it one more time?
Sure. So take your 12-inch trimmer, and when you put a circle into your 12-inch trimmer, it's going to fall perfectly. So this line is where the guide is to put your piece of paper, a straight line piece of paper. If you take that circle and you put it in, I call this the well. It's where your arm for the cutting blade goes back and forth. It's like an opening between that cutting border where your paper would rest up. Take your circle and put it right into that well of the circle. So it's kind of the edge of the circle just falls perfectly between that, and the edges of the circle rest up against this cutting, this straight edge for your paper. So when your circle's right in there and you press this down, or put the arm down, you're going to be cutting your circle perfectly in half. It's just another trick with this straight trimmer for cutting circles perfectly in half, is put it right into that well, put the arm down, and it's going to cut it perfectly in the center. But when you're doing it with that decorative paper, you just want to make sure that when you put it into that well, like so, that your trees are going up and down. You don't want to be cutting in half this way, because you're going to be cutting your trees in half, and we don't want to chop down our trees. So put it into that well. You're going to make sure that both sides of the circle are touching the plastic on the in that well. And make sure your trees are up and down, and then you're just going to cut, and it'll cut your circle perfectly in half.
Thank you.
Alice,
Yes.
Alice, I'm a little bit behind. What on the blue circle? Which one did I use on the inside?
The red blade. On the inside of the circle, I used the red blade.
Okay.
So if this is my circle, I use the red blade on the white paper, blue blade on the navy blue paper on the outside of the circle. And then on the inside circle, this piece, I use the red blade.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, if you do have, I'm going to move ahead a little bit. This, like I said, this is being recorded. I'll be posting it all tomorrow. This is the other sheet of decorative paper. We're not going to use this side with the trees again. We're using the other side because I love this blue pattern with the leaves on it. And if you look closely, there's little owls in there as well. You're actually not going to see them the way I did it, because when I did my page layout, let me just pull that over, I put the white squares inside my photo boxes to show where a picture is going to go. You can actually use it as a double mat if you want to use white paper now, but I just made photo boxes put against the edge of my circles, because I could put my circles against the inside of the papers together. I just thought this was a totally different look. I thought it was really cool. So what I did was I cut my blue piece of paper, and I need 4 squares that are, I'm just going to double check. I need 4 squares that are 4.5 inches wide. So squares are 4.5 by 4.5. So what I'm going to do is take my trimmer. I'm going to put my paper into the trimmer, and I'm going to cut 4.5 inches down, and I'm going to cut 4.5 inches again. And you want to save all these little extra pieces, because we do use them on our cards later, and I also use them on edges of pieces of paper. So save those extras. And then what I did was I turned my strip of paper and turned it to 4.5 again. So I'm making 4 4.5 inch squares. 4.5 inch. Need the spot. There we go. And by putting your piece of paper up against this back wall here, there's like a little edge to the top of the trimmer. That's giving you that perfect angle, the 90-degree angle on your square. So I have 4.5 by 4.5, and I did 4 of these. And again, save that little extra piece of paper because we'll be using that. And I did the same thing with this one. Okay, so if I'm building my pages, I'm just going to slow down a little bit so you can catch up with that. So building my pages, I have my 2 pieces of light blue cardstock. Oops. You have your circles with the owl on one side and the non-owl on the other side. And I'm not taping down yet. I just want to show you how it's going to lay out. So these squares are kind of put here. So when I'm laying my squares down, it kind of tells me where I want the circle to start and be behind. I want it to be a little bit behind these squares, but I want to make sure that owl does show because he is very close to the edge there. So I'm just going to lay it down so that there's a little bit of light blue border around the squares on each side. And I'm going to make sure that the most of that decorative paper is showing because that's the feature that I really want to point out on my page. So what I would do is just make it that circle is just behind those squares, and then I can tape the circle first. So I would just pull it out, put some tape on the back of my circle, and I don't put tape everywhere. To me, once the protector is on my page, you're not going to even see, it's not going to lift up. That tape is really going to hold it. So I know about where my squares are going to be, and I'm just going to tuck that circle right under the edge of those squares. Make sure that each end of the circle is under the edge of the square, and then tape it down. So it should be in the around the 4.5 inch mark. So if I just was going to tape it down without looking at my squares, I can look on the 13 by 13 inch mats. You can see the actual measurements on the outside of your paper. If you don't have that new mat and just want to measure over about 4.5 inches, maybe even a little more than 4.5 inches, and tape it down. And then these are going to go in the corners, leaving a little bit of blue space around the outside, light blue around the outside. So they're going to go in each corner. So if I'm taping that down, I would just tape that so there's about not even 1/4 of an inch, 1/4, 1/8 of an inch of the light blue paper around this blue decorative square. Everybody getting caught up? And then this is where I pulled out that pumpkin color plaid paper. On the back is the striped. I thought that would be really cool in the center here. And you can see my layout page is Oops. Let me get the other one because that one goes on the opposite side. So what I did was I just added that piece of pumpkin square. And again, that also is 4.5-inch square. So you're going to need 2 of them, 1 for each side. And it just offset, it just kind of made it pop a little bit more. So your more prominent picture that you're going to use on your page, I always use my favorite picture on a page. I always make it pop out, whether I make it into an oval and mat it with the cutting system, or just make it a little bigger. But I always have one picture that just really is my most prominent picture of the page. That's probably the one I'd put in the center, but I wanted that to be a different color, so it really popped out. But I also don't want to lose where that owl is on the background paper. So what I'm going to do is cut and then cut this at 4.5 inches because we're making 2 more squares. Keep the extra because we're going to use that for another page. And then I turn this and make this 4.5 inches. And I'm making 2 of them. So 1 and so again, this is going to, if I take off my page idea, this is going to just be, this 4.5-inch square is just going to be turned a little bit. And that's where why I wanted to put the, if you notice on my page layout, I put white in the middle. I just wanted to know where my pictures were going to be because I didn't want to cover them too much for that top one nor the bottom one when I tilted this. So you can either put it on now, you can wait till you actually have pictures for it, but I just loved the layout look with that white in the middle. So if I were to take, and I'm just going to grab a couple of pictures here that I can chop up because they're all doubles. So what you want for the center, my white inside of these squares was 4x4. So if I want a picture to be 4x4, that's what I'm going to cut now, is just make sure my pictures, most pictures are 4x6. So all I have to do is cut off and get a 4x4 picture. And then I can throw that in the center of my thing. So that'll be my picture. So everybody can just have an idea of what the pictures are going to look like. Oh, I've got some funny ones here, so that's always fun. So if my pictures are 4x4, we're going to make this the center because Danny is got his funny face going. So if I were to put pictures on that page, you get the idea that the pictures are matted with the colors that I'm using. And you know, the middle picture obviously is going to pop because of the orange just popping it out a little bit more. But that gives you the idea. You can put white in it for now, and then cut your pictures down a little more so you have that double matte. So if I were to take another picture, let's see. So if I took a picture that was 3.5 by 3.5 and stuck it in the center, now I have a double mat to my picture. Does that make sense? So that's why I put the white on, just in case I want a double mat, but it also leaves a place where that's where I want to put a picture.
How did I mess it up so bad?
So to move on, what I did was you have your layout, and then what I did was I added these stripes, and all I did for that was I took the little piece of blue that was left over from my cuts, this little piece after I cut the two 4.5 by 4.5 inch squares. I took this piece and I cut it at is that a 1/2 inch? Yes, I cut it at a 1/2 inch. So I just took my trimmer, moved my paper up to the 1/2 inch mark, and the 1/2 inch mark on your trimmer is actually the first line past the cutting edge. So if this is my cutting edge, let me just turn it this way so you can see that first line past my cutting edge on my trimmer is actually a 1/2 inch. So what I did was I just put my paper at the 1/2 inch mark and cut a strip, and then did it again and again until I was done with the paper. And that gave me the little lines that I could use for my corners. And it just gave you something else. It's up to you if you want to put those little lines in the corners. I thought it was really cool behind the embellishments. It would also look really cool with a picture there, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm just cutting as many as I can out of this strip of paper. I think you get 6 out of each. And you're gonna
Alice, what's the width of those, please?
a 1/2 inch.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Quarter. 1.5. And what I did was I put them so that they're coming off the edge of your paper. When I taped it down, I did the furthest one, and you can see on this side, the furthest one, let me just move this down a little. The furthest one from the edge, from the corner, I did that one first, and I just put that strip of paper down, and then the next one I just flipped over the paper because it's got that white and gray look to the other side. I put that down next, and then put another blue one down, and then once they're taped down, I can actually flip it over and cut the edges. So let me just show you how I did that. So I took one blue one with tape on the white side. Oops. And just diagonally put it across the corner. It doesn't matter what angle you get it at. I just make sure that I have the edges sticking off. And then I did the white side. So I'm going to put blue on tape on the dark blue side. And I put that one down, just butt up next to it. And then I did the same thing with another. I put a little white on the tape on the white side and put it up against the white one. So it looks like this. Let me get my pictures off here. Oops, I forgot to take this one down. Okay, so I have my 3 strips sticking off the edge. All I did was take my scissors, I flip over the page and you can see the papers sticking off the edge. All I do is take my scissors and just cut along the edge of the light blue paper and it'll cut those little strips off. And it'll be that perfect line. And you can probably do this with your straight trimmer as well. I just always pull out my scissors. So now you have those 3 lines in the corner of your page. And you can do it so that it's in this corner and the opposite corner, or you can do all 4 corners. So when I did the page originally, and you can see my layout, I did it in all 4 corners, and then I added my embellishments over top on the 2 corners, because now I can take one of my pictures. If I have more than just the 3 pictures for the middle, we'll say we're doing it this way. I have my pictures there. If I want to take another picture and put it over here, I'm still not covering all of that scenery in that decorative paper. So that's the idea of why I only put them in the 2 corners. You can put embellishments in all the corners. You can fill the whole page with pictures. That's up to you. It's your page. But I just wanted you to see that option. And that's probably why I chose not to put embellishments in both corners. But the embellishments, I use some stickers and some of the embellishment pack. This one, and I'll just give you an idea of what I did. I did one flat. I did a couple flat. The words I did flat, and I did one of the feathers flat. And then a lot of times with even a sticker, I put foam squares behind them, and the foam squares actually pop it up on top of the flat sticker. So it just gives a little bit of a 3D look to your page. The reason I picked this little owl for this one was because the owl here looked very much like him. They had the same face, and I just felt he went with it. That's up to you. Again, there's some really cute owls in the embellishment pack. And then for down on the bottom, I did the same thing. I put the leaves here, and the sticker of a feather, and another sticker of the leaves. Those I put on after I popped up the thankful sign. So this is going to make a great Thanksgiving page. The thankful for this embellishment, I popped up with 3D foam squares, and I always put my foam squares a little more towards the middle, and that way I can tuck my stickers in on afterwards just underneath, because I thought it needed a little bit more. So I added my I probably put this leaf sticker down first, put the thankful piece on with a 3D foam square. The owl also has foam squares, and then this little sticker I stuck underneath because I just thought it needed a little bit of extra. But that's how I decorated the corners of the